It is a little after 6. We do have quorum. I'm going to go ahead and call this evening's meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals for the City of Florence to order. First item on this evening's agenda is approval of the minutes of the October 28, 2021 meeting. Minutes have been submitted to members of the board at ample time for review. Are there any amendments or changes that need to be made?
None.
There being none, the chair will now entertain a motion to either approve of the minutes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. The minutes are approved. Next item on this evening's agenda is BZA hearing number 2021-18. This is a request for a variance from the setback requirements in Table 3-8.1.1 and the size limits for accessory buildings found in Section 3-8.1.9, subsection I of the Unified Development Ordinance. Location is 1309 West Palmetto Street. Tax map number 90047-01-004. Owner of record is Damon and Deborah Runyon. Applicant is Damon and Deborah Runyon. Board will now hear from city staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We can cue up there we go. Again, this property is located at 1309 West Palmetto Street, and the property is in a residential district that is zoned NC 6.1. This is characterized by smaller single-family residential lots that are typically a minimum square footage of 6,000 square feet. This lot, however, is much larger than that. It's approximately 20,000 square feet, which is more appropriately aligned with our NC 15 district. So it is a double lot that exists in this neighborhood. And here's a picture of the lot along, or an overview of the lot along West Palmetto Street. The red indicating the location of the lot. And it is located in the vicinity of the residential district between the downtown and the Five Points area in that stretch of West Palmetto Street. And here's a closer look at the lot, showing that it is indeed kind of a larger lot located with the smaller lots around it in this case. So it was constructed on a double lot when originally constructed. And the proposal in this case is to build an accessory structure, essentially a detached garage to the rear of the principal building. The requirements are that it can only be 25% of the main structure. The main structure is approximately 2,000 square feet, which would limit the structure to 500 square feet. In neighborhood conservation areas, it is limited to 25% of the main principal building or up to 1,500 square feet. So in this case, the 500 square feet or the 25% is the lower number. The other variance request in this case is the rear setback. Typically, the rear setback for smaller accessory structures is 5 feet from the rear property line, and whatever the side setback is for the neighborhood conservation district. In this case, because of its size, it does push the requirement out to 10 feet from the rear property line, and the side setback is still 5 feet for the residential district. The proposed building in this case, and I can skip over to that, is to be located in the rear corner of the lot behind the main structure. This is kind of a footprint showing it dimensionally on the lot. The rear portion in red there would show the approximate footprint of the building. So they are proposing it to be 5 feet from the side property line, which is compliant with the ordinance. But they would also like it 5 feet from the rear property line, which would require a 5-foot variance, since the rear setback, because of its size, would be 10 feet from the property line. The other variance in this case is the size of the accessory building. As I stated before, the maximum we could allow by code would be 500 square feet. However, the property owner does have a boat and a vehicle they would like to store in there, as well as have some shop space for woodworking and such things that is obviously detached from the house. So in this case, they are proposing a 30 by 45 accessory building, which would be up to 1,350 square feet. but it's still below the 1,500 that would be the max allowed for the area. But again, based on the size of the principal building, it is more than we could allow. So here are a few site photos. You can kind of see where the main structure is, and where it's proposed to be is you see where the car is parked under the little detached carport there. The proposed building would go behind that. And what you can't see, I think, in these pictures, I don't know that we got a good representation of it, but there is also some landscaping in the front, some trees out by the road that kind of screen the structure fairly well from the street view as well. You can see the existing kind of magnolia that's there and some tree cover there as well. So again, the conditions that have to be met to appease the board are that the variance from the terms of this ordinance will not be contrary to public interest, where owing to special conditions, a literal enforcement of the provisions will in an individual case result in an unnecessary hardship. Requiring that the rear setback be met by the new building would result in the building taking up more of the open area of the yard in this case. That the spirit of the ordinance will be observed, public safety and welfare secured, and substantial justice done. The intent of the ordinance is to provide an adequate distance from property lines for accessory buildings in a residential area, and to limit the scale of accessory buildings compared to the house on the same lot. And keep in mind that this is a double lot in this case as well. Number 3, that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. This is a double lot, and it's therefore currently developed with half the density of the adjacent lots. And there are also, and I can back up to that, large accessory buildings on some of the surrounding properties as well. And I'll back up to that before I end the presentation. Number 4, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. Again, this is a double lot compared to those around it, and it's currently developed with half the density of adjacent lots. That because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to a particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. Requiring adherence to the specifics of the setback and size limit requirements would not prevent the property's use as a single-family detached home. However, the owner does want to be able to have, this extra storage to store their boat and have the large workshop. And that the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and to the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. The owner has proposed that the exterior of the building will be finished to match the existing house, and the area proposed for the accessory building is currently unused space, and it would be located 135 feet from the front property line, so it would be a good distance away from the street right of way, and fairly well hidden by existing landscaping as well. And also we did look at the maximum coverage on the lot to make sure stormwater requirements would be met. And it is well within, because it is such a large lot, it does not cross the threshold of having too much impervious surface on the lot. And we did talk to the owners about stormwater concerns and not pushing water onto adjacent property, and they did agree to do any French drainage or extra drainage that would be necessary during the construction to alleviate any concerns of water on adjacent property as well. And I'll back up to, I think this picture kind of does a fairly good job of showing the vicinity, and I can leave that up to show the adjacent properties, as well as to the rear of it, these covered buildings are also accessory structures that back up to the street behind it as well. So, and they're quite large as well. And this concludes staff's report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dudley. Are there any questions for city staff or members of the board?
Yes, sir. Nathaniel Poston. The city findings,
Were there any neighbors that complained with the notification of this here?
We did not receive any complaints regarding the request, and letters were sent to all the adjacent property owners as well as the property was posted. I believe we even got some, a letter potentially from one of the adjacent property owners saying it was okay. I think, did we? The owner could present light upon that, yeah.
Is that in our file? No.
I don't believe so, but I know that when the public hearing's open, I know that she did reach out to some of the adjacent property.
But the city doesn't have
We-
any on
we
file
did not
as
receive
far as
anything.
complaints? Gotcha, okay. Thank you, sir.
Any questions from members of the board? Go ahead.
Yes, sir. You mentioned double lots, and it seemed like you kind of stressed that a lot. And looking at this as opposed to the neighbors, you can clearly see it is substantially bigger. So that being said, what were you leaning to saying double lots? Should we double the square footage? How's the city looking on that as far as conditions?
I think a lot of times when we as staff look at the intent of the zoning code, it's obviously to not to let lots get too much pervious surface on them, or impervious surface on them rather, such that it creates stormwater issues. And also it kind of creates a scaling and mass problem within the neighborhood. You know, if certain lots are developed more densely than others. In this case, it is an NC-16 neighborhood, so the lots could go as low as 6,000 square feet. And so I think I guess my point was that the characteristic of the neighborhood would not change dramatically if another large building was placed on the property.
Thank you.
Because of the density of this lot is not near what the adjacent lots are, or it's about half of what the adjacent lots are.
Right. One more, let me add one more thing. So would you say the very first question, when the city findings, one of the conditions, would you say that the city, the setback, that was the only problem that y'all were looking at, the setback lines?
Right, setback
In the rear,
lines
I think
and
there were
the
five.
size of the structure. That's
Okay.
right, because it's larger than what we could allow, just by code. So there are two variance requests. One would be the rear setback would need to be 10 or 5 feet instead of the required 10 feet. And that's because of the size of the building. It's typically required to be 10 feet if it's over, I forget the threshold, I think it's 500 square feet, but if it's over a certain size, it has to be at least 10 feet off the property line. And the other variance request is because of the size of the structure.
Is it possible to correct that first one with the setback? Is it possible to move it further into the yard? Did the city?
I think there may be space for it, but
something we can
maneuverability
explore.
to get into it may be difficult. That may be a better question for the applicant.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for city staff? And Mr. Preston brought up a good point. Just to remind members of the board, when making a motion or asking a question, please state your name into the microphone clearly so that we'll have that on record.
Right.
All right. Thank you.
The mass make it difficult to see who's speaking as well.
Yes, yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Dudley. All right. The board will now hear from the applicant. Is Damon or Deborah Runyon available? Okay. And what we're going to do is I'm going to swear you in as you speak, because this is a quasi-legal hearing. So I'm assuming you are Deborah Runyon. Okay. Are you going to speak first?
Yes.
Okay. If you don't mind, please, ma'am, I'm going to swear you in. Do you promise that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't hear it. I'm sorry.
No, I didn't answer. I thought there was more.
Oh, no. That's just,
Yes, yes, I do.
Okay, I know typically, there's all this other stuff that goes with it. I just keep it condensed.
Oh, okay.
So we'll take your word. All right, you may proceed.
Okay, I want first to address the question that you had, Mr. Poston, about the neighbors. I did go around the neighborhood and get an acceptance for the building, and so they could ask me any kind of questions because everyone received their letter, and were aware that we were looking at a variance to build a building. And so it was really nice to see the neighbors and talk to them about it and answer any questions they had. So did you want to see this?
Please, yes, ma'am.
And those are the neighbors that are on either side of me.
Okay.
And one behind me, and the other one behind me I just couldn't seem to catch up with.
Right.
I think
Okay.
they're on vacation or something because they didn't answer their phone or the door knocked or anything.
got
I'm Deborah Runyon. This is my husband Damon. And I have lived in the house since 1990. And then I got married. And we've been trying to merge households, and we are realizing that we have things that won't fit into the house.
Sure.
He has a car, he has a truck, he has a boat, he has a shop, and so we needed more space is why we come here, and so that's what created the variance request.
Okay.
And we actually started with a bigger building. But, dream big. But we did ask a contractor to come and kind of help us figure out size and space, and to answer the question that Mr. Poston asked again about that 10-foot variance. We have that, there's a garage right now on the property, and if we were to bring the building any closer to the garage, we couldn't get into the building. So we were trying to maximize the space that was already in that corner area instead of having to bring it way out in the center of the backyard. Just kind of keep it. There's a dog pen there that's been there for a long, long time. We don't have a dog anymore, but so we were utilizing that space.
Yeah.
And on that property line, there's another building to the side, another building to the back, and kind of a screen, shrubbery screen, I guess you'd say. And as Mr. Dudley indicated, we are the smallest house on the block, even though we have the largest property area,
Right.
I guess you'd say.
Yes, ma'am.
And the double lot also has a double driveway. So there's a driveway that goes on one side of the house, around the back of it, and on the other side, which allows us actually to access the building in that corner, because we could just take that driveway and go on to parking,
Right.
that area. So, and as he said, we've got trees, lots of trees that would screen, and trying to read through my glasses.
I would like to address one of the issues that we were talking
Oh,
about.
go
My
ahead.
name's
All right.
Damon Runyon.
Let me swear you in, sir,
Okay.
real quick. And you are Damon Runyon?
I am.
Okay. Do you promise that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth?
I do.
All right, go ahead, sir.
It was mentioned about sliding the building over. The problem with that is if you've ever backed a boat into a slip at night, you understand. With that circle drive, I can come one way in and head back out toward the road and get a straight shot going into the edge of that building.
Yes, sir.
If I slide it over, I've got a dog legged in.
Uh-huh.
I've had that mistake happen before.
Been there, and if you don't mind, sir, I am very jealous of that driveway in the backyard. So, I've done many things with boats that shouldn't be done, so yes, sir.
You understand, that was the
Oh, yeah.
reason that it was located. We searched this whole place over many times trying to figure out how to situate it.
Yeah.
And that's the only way we can get it in there. If I can't get it over there, then I can't build it. I mean, I
Understand.
can't get the boat in it in the truck. Then
Right.
There's no reason for it, so
Yeah.
consideration.
Yes, sir.
And I think, thank you. That gives me a chance to kind of glance over my notes. I think the only other thing that I have here is that it's appropriate for the neighborhood, and it actually would be appropriate if we went into that historic overlay that keeps being proposed for the Maple Park area, which is what we are in that. So I don't know where that's going to go, but at least we would be in line with
Sure.
that. So,
Okay.
any questions?
Are there any questions for the applicant?
Yes, ma'am. Are y'all in the historic district?
No, they
okay,
have made
just
that
do that.
proposal.
Yeah.
They have made that proposal. They've come to our neighborhood president. He's made a presentation, just inquiring really right now.
But y'all.
So no, we haven't, no. Mm-mm.
I have one other question. If that's, the city mentioned something about the storm water, I know impervious surface and water runoff. Is that something y'all have some bit of understanding or some kind of written out plan just in case?
Well, when we talked to the builder, we talked to him about that. We have a storage drain that is actually in our driveway, right there at the street. Really not in our driveway, but at our driveway. Then we have another storage drain that's right by that magnolia tree. And then the way our lot goes, the road is higher than the house. And so you come in our driveway and you go down. And so where the dog pen is, everything kind of moves down into the center of our property. Nobody around us has ever complained, or I've never really seen water being standing on their properties. So yes, we did talk about making sure that no water would go on their properties, and what we may need to do, we would need to look at how any water would be, diverted into an, I don't know what would need to be done. We didn't get that far, actually. I mean, I don't know. Do you dig a ditch? I don't know. Do you do a storm drain? I mean, a French drain, we did talk about that.
I think that would be a good recommendation to add in there, just, make it that much clearer if the city's fine and had that in there, make them happy and put it in there on the condition or something like that. Just recommendation. It just seems like the city found it.
We did not get that far with the builder because we didn't have the variance, so there was,
Well, you're going for the right process. You're doing exactly the right thing. So, thank you, ma'am. That's my question.
all right. Anybody else?
Thank you guys very much. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak for or against the variance request? All right, there being none. Mr. Dudley, did you have something you wanted to say? Oh, okay.
I'm good.
You approached the podium. I didn't know.
Sorry.
Okay, you're fine. You just looked official, so I just want to be sure. All right, there being no other speakers, no other questions, the chair will now entertain a motion to either approve or deny the variance request.
I'm Shalonda
Yep.
Shalonda Dees.
Yes, ma'am?
I move that we grant the request for a variance based upon the following findings.
Okay.
Okay. That a variance from the terms of the zoning ordinance will not be contrary to the public interest where owing to special conditions, a literal enforcement of the provisions will in an individual case result in an unnecessary hardship, and that the rear setback requirements be met by the new building would result in the building taking up more of the open area of the yard. The applicant therefore, requested a 50% variance from the rear setback to set the building 5 feet from the rear property line instead of a 10 feet, and a variance allowing a building that is 68% of the size of the house rather than 25%. That the spirit of the zoning ordinance be observed, public safety and welfare secured, and substantial justice done, because the intent of the ordinance is to provide an adequate distance from property lines for accessory buildings in a residential area, and to limit the scale of accessory buildings compared to the house on the same lot. That there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property because it's a double lot and therefore currently developed with half the density of the 2 adjacent lots. That these conditions do not generally apply to the other property in the vicinity. This is a double lot compared to those around it, and therefore currently developed with half the density of the adjacent lots. That because of the conditions, the application of the zoning ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property by requiring adherence to the specifics of the setback and size limit requirements would not prevent the use of the home as a single-family residence. However, the owner wants to be able to store his boat and have a large workshop. That the authorization of a variance would not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district would not be harmed by the granting of the variance. The exterior of the building will be finished to match the house. The area proposed for the accessory building is currently unused space, and it will be located 130 feet from the front property line.
All right, thank you, Ms. Dees. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
The ayes have it. The motion carries. The variance request is approved. Mr. and Ms. Runyon, you guys are welcome to stick around for the rest of this riveting meeting. But your duties here are done, so you guys can leave if you want to.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Let's see. Are there any other announcements by city staff or members of the board before we conclude the meeting?
I will just announce that next month's meeting will be on December the 16th, which is because of the way Christmas holidays fall and
Right.
Christmas vacation, we'll have it on the 3rd week instead of the 4th week.
Gotcha. Okay.
Come over, said nay.
And I would like to welcome Mr. Nat Mitchell. Is it Nat?
Yes.
You go by that? Nat Mitchell to the board. Thank you, sir, for your service. Glad to have you here. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right. Motion carries. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. I thought it was already adjourned. I'm so sorry.